What's up, everybody? The Red Dragon here, and we are back discussing the topic of introverts versus extroverts. So the first video that I did, I kind of did the very basics of the topic, and the amount of responses that I got was really overwhelming, and I could not believe all the people who were wanting more about this. So I think that's great. I think it's fantastic to want to learn more, especially when it comes to learning more about yourself. And in a way, it was almost sad also that so many people had never heard about this subject, because as I said, I had never heard about this up until fairly recently in my life. And this is a subject that I think should be taught very early on, like in grade school. Like, this is the type of stuff that I would want to learn in the education system. I shouldn't have to leave and go to college before I start learning more and more about myself and how I work and how I think and how I learn, really, because some people learn better in groups, some people learn better in solitude and stuff like that. So the amount of responses, I read them all, loved it. Thank you guys so much. And in this video, a lot of people actually wanted to take the quiz. They wanted to know whether or not they were an introvert or an extrovert. So hopefully by the end of this, you will know for sure where you stand. And again, there's a lot of myths also about introverts. So I plan on doing one more part, at least in this series, where I talk about that. But in this video, we're going to learn more about the introvert and extrovert personalities, and we'll take the quiz. So today I took several different quizzes, kind of compiled my own list. So we've got 10 questions here that we'll go through and we'll take. But first off, I want to start by saying that as I was gathering information for this video to try to make it as the most informative as I possibly could for you, I've realized and found out a lot of really cool stuff. The first being that whenever the researchers actually first started looking into this and the two big personality traits, they originally thought that this was based on your nurture or your upbringing, your environment. So the way you were raised could depend on whether or not you ended up being an extrovert or an introvert in life. And by the end of it, they really didn't think that this was pre-programmed into you. But by the end of the research, they actually came to the realization that this is something that you're born with. So it's just a different way of thinking. Not one way is normal, not one way is not normal. It's just two different ways of being. And yes, there is, or there are people who kind of take traits from both the extroverts and the introverts, and those are actually called ambiverts. So they may actually have the best of both worlds because they can kind of mix and match the personality traits. But the way they figured out that this was actually kind of pre-programmed into you or born into you is they took babies and they put them in very highly stimulated areas, like rooms with lots of lights or lots of sounds or popping balloons. And some babies actually absolutely got giddy and excited and happy by being stimulated from outside sources. So they loved the lights, they loved the loud sounds, they loved all of that. And then some babies absolutely freaked out. They got scared, or they hated the loud noises, they hated the loud lights, they hated the stimulation. And so what they found was that babies later on in life, as they grew up, babies who were highly sensitive to objects, they were actually introverts when they grew up. And then babies who loved the stimulation, they actually ended up being extroverts. One more thing that I kind of learned over the course of today was that researchers actually believe that the way of thinking for an introvert, like introvertism or whatever you want to call it, that was actually the primary way of living for quite some time, all throughout our history and in different cultures. For a long time, the wise people, the chiefs of the villages or whatever, they didn't speak a whole lot. But whenever they did speak, people listened because they knew they had something important to say. And then as populations grew and we started getting cities and towns and industrialization came about, Then all of a sudden you've got all these people in this town. Well, if you're a business person, you're not looking for the quiet person. You're looking for the person who stands out from the crowd. So all of a sudden, now it was cool to be bold and to be loud and to be in your face sort of thing. And they actually believe that's kind of where we got to where we are today, where now the majority of the population seems to be extroverts. And so the people who stand out from the crowd, who's not quiet, they're the ones that seem to get the most attention. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're the best for the position or best for leadership roles or anything else like that. They're just the ones who stand out from the crowd, because now it's cool to be bold, it's cool to be loud, it's cool to be in your face. So that was one more thing that I kind of found out about today. So I thought I'd pass it along for you. But let's get into, what are you? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? And I cannot stress this enough before we take this quiz. It doesn't matter what the outcome is, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. It doesn't mean you're going to be more popular, more successful, more anything. It's just two different personality traits, two different ways of thinking, two different ways of being. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these top 10 questions that I've got here. If you answer the majority of these as true, or you feel you know that these describe you and your emotions or whatever, then most likely you are an introvert. If you disagree with the statement, then you're most likely an extrovert. Of course, there is no one person who is always introvert all the time. There's no one person who's always extrovert all the time. So just kind of keep that in mind as you answer these questions, kind of make it generalized about what you would normally do, because there's always instances where you're an introvert and you'll do things that are more extroverted, or vice versa. All right, so question number 1. I dislike small talk, but I enjoy talking in depth about topics that matter to me. And that's me to a T. Like, I suck at just meeting some stranger and striking up a conversation about something. Even in Xbox Live parties, a lot of times people will join in, and I'll hear people say over the comms, Dragon's not talking, he's not saying anything, what's wrong, and they'll think, I don't want to talk to him or anything else like that. And it's just that I have nothing to offer. I have nothing important to say that I feel. But if you want to talk about YouTube, or if you want to talk about the meaning of life or space exploration or something like that that interests me, you won't ever get me to shut up. But when it just comes to small talk, I suck at it. Number 2, people tell me that I'm a good listener. Is that true of you? Number 3, people describe me as soft-spoken or mellow. I'm usually a lot more mellow when I'm not on the mic. Actually, if you go watch my older videos, I was just really bland and boring. But, over the course of getting a lot of comments and feedback, I knew that I kind of had to up the ante whenever I get in front of the microphone. So I try to make it a little bit more exciting sounding, at least when I'm on the tube. Number 4, I dislike conflict. And that one... I can't agree with that one anymore, because I despise any sort of drama or conflict. Most of the stuff that you get in conflicts about, it's stuff that you won't remember 2 weeks from now. So I usually just try to lower the threshold when it comes to serious confrontation. Number 5, I tend to think before I speak. So we talked a little bit about that last video. Extroverts tend to think while they're speaking, and introverts like to gather their thoughts a lot of times. And it's hard for them to just come up and, if you ask them a question, it's hard for us sometimes to just come out and say something. Even if we know the answer, or even if we're sure about it, we still want to take in and kind of dwell on it a little bit before we say something. Number 6, I often let calls go through to voicemail. I hate the phone. I hate even going and listening to a voice message. If I see that I've got a voice message, I've told most of the people that I know, please don't leave me voice messages. Just text me or something, because I dread even logging in and listening to that message. I just don't care to really do it. Number 7, I can concentrate easily. Are you one of those people who gets really just in the zone? I do that especially when I'm watching TV or something. If I'm interested in a program, people will be talking or come into the room, and I won't even notice. And it's not because I'm trying to ignore them. I don't even have to think about it. It just happens, and I'm really concentrated on whatever it is that I'm doing at the time. Number 8, I seem to care about wealth, fame, and status less than my peers. So, everybody's got those friends who are all about making that money or all about impressing other people, and, for me anyways, that's just not the case. If you see me in town anywhere, I'm probably wearing pajama pants because I'm more interested in being comfortable rather than trying to impress somebody. Number 9, I enjoy work that allows me to dive in with few interruptions. So once you get started on something, you just don't want to put it down, and you get locked in, and you don't like to have to be bothered. And then finally, number 10, and I've selected this one as the final one because I thought, this is the ultimate question. Number 10, I enjoy solitude. So if you enjoy time with yourself, if you enjoy time with your own thoughts and your inner being, then I think that's the ultimate clue right there that you might be an introvert. So there you go. That's the introvert extrovert quiz. Post below again. Let me know what you thought about this video, and if you'd like to hear more about the subject, and if anything changed. Did you think you were an introvert and maybe now you're not after taking the quiz? Did the quiz change anything for you, or maybe it opened up some new areas for you as well? So post below. I want to hear from you again, and that does it for me, the Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.